because I'm thinking in solmization. And that's why it's just so awkward when somebody is mentioning, different the modal scales. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
That's so weird for me because I'm coming from the solmization background. Anyhow.
Yeah. Well, and you come from a purely classical background too, right?
Probably. I don't know. I really don't know. At this point, I just feel weird about all the things I actually don't know.
Just because the whole mode system, just having your diatonic scale and then seeing your 7 modes, I feel personally it's a very non-classical guitar starting place. Because here, at least in the music school that I went to, we had 4 semesters of music theory. And basically the 4th semester, the last one, is everything that's involved in self-taught guitar, looking at modes as positions on the guitar. So all that stuff I was completely solid with, but when it came to functional harmony, it took me a year to even have that clicking moment of understanding just
what
dominant
functional
tonic. Oh, just the differentiating between a set of notes and them all just being sort of equal versus an actual relationship between dominant and tonic. And that's functional harmony, right? You have a major key, and the 2 important chords in that key are going to be the dominant chord in G major, D7, and then the tonic chord, a G triad.
Oh,
and
okay.
just how the notes function with each other, or their relationship between those notes.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the stuff that I didn't understand in school until the second year. But everything past that, modes and stuff, I kind of got.
I think where I got on the wrong track with this at the music school, if you were a really good guitarist like I was, they just, I don't know, it was I don't even remember if anybody asked me, but if you were a good guitarist, the way it worked is that you only went to guitar lessons and skipped all theory and solfeggio lessons, and you just didn't go to school for those lessons. Because I guess the logic was that because you were so good, you had to practice all the time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Competitions and all. So at the end of my music school studies, that's when I realized that I was supposed to go to theory lessons. And I said I want to apply to to music college, and they were like, well, that might be a problem. And I was like, why? Because you never took any music theory lessons. So then they tried to speedrun me on all the 6 years of music theory under a little bit over a year. And it wasn't too good. So I got some fundamentals, but then I was just so much behind for the curriculum that we started on at university. So through the whole university, I constantly felt that I was just, trying to catch up. I was just trying to catch up. And by the time I understood something, I finally, got the idea. We were already moving forward with the curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's why I never really developed this calm confidence with music theory, I guess. Classmates I had, they struggled with the same thing, because apparently this is a thing in Hungary. I don't know if it's how it works in other countries, but if you're good at guitar and if you take competitions, they just don't send you to learn how music works.
Yeah.
Because you're probably busy. You could be busy practicing. You don't need all those, all that theory lesson.
Yeah, which I kind of get that. I feel like, at least in my schooling, I got so much stuff that wasn't guitar. I had to take piano lessons and stuff. And I mean, for music theory at least, I was actually pretty fortunate, just because I was able to take a lot of music and theory classes in my high school, before university. Even my freshman year, I took a pretty extensive theory course that I wasn't even actually supposed to be able to get into as a freshman, but I just sort of got in somehow. And then I also took cello, I took strings all through high school, and then I was able to study jazz theory and performance at a separate school. So I basically missed out on all my crucial education. I can't do math at all. My spelling's horrible. I didn't learn anything except for music.
I mean,
which was cool.
That's fine, because when do you need math on in your everyday life?
I mean, when I'm buying milk, it sometimes is hard. I'm just I don't know what this means. I have to get somebody else to do it for me.
Just pour all your coins on the.
Yeah,
on the
just can you count this for me?
and tell them, please, can you get the right amount
Is
out?
it that many, or like that, or like? Yeah, so that's hard, but I'm pretty comfortable with theory, which is cool. So like my education, like I was comfortable with all that stuff, and then even starting university, that was when I started playing classical guitar. So it was sort of the opposite, where like my actual playing ability was like highly stunted because I only played like electric and steel string up until that point. But I was comfortable with like all the theory already though, because
Oh,
I'd
cool.
already studied jazz and all that stuff. So it's been a lot of catch up over the last like 6 or 7 years, just working my right hand, trying to get it better.
But are you happy with this order you got, like that you started with with more I don't know if electric guitar and jazz music, so you started with those styles and then transitioned to classical guitar?
I mean, you can always like be happy in whatever situation you're in. I'm extremely grateful for the stuff that I got from that, which the stuff that I did get from that was a love of improvisation, which like improv is how I learn new stuff. Like so if there is like a new theory concept, I already know how to take theory concepts and apply them to my improvisation. So that's like a really useful skill for me. And I apply that to like classical. Like when I'm learning like a new piece on classical and there's just like a little right hand like thing, I'll move it through like just like a major scale. So it gave me a love for improv. Now, like it's easy for me to like look at sort of the opposite, where you see these like amazing players who are like 18 and like maybe they didn't study that much theory, but they only focus on playing. And it's like, it would be nice to be like that proficient on guitar, and maybe I could learn theory later. But I don't know. I guess it's a balance. Or I guess it's like there's pros and cons. Like being proficient in theory, I think has like made my ear a lot better. And it's given me like good musical feel. But yeah, no, now it's just like technique, building up technique is the big thing. That's what I'll be doing for the next like 6 years probably. Yeah.
Hang on. I think I saw like a question or something about music theory. I remember seeing something music theory. Here's your theory question. Like a guitarist would need music theory.
Music theory is sort of just your way of like understanding what's going on with the music. Like a really simple example, like interpretive ideas, like usually the dominant, which is like your tense chord with like the tritone, that's like a loud harsh chord that resolves into the tonic chord. So knowing that relationship, if you see like a tritone like with the dominant bass, you know to like play that and make it prominent and then resolve it quietly into the tonic chord coming up. Like if you don't know theory, your teacher would just have to tell you play this one loud, play this one soft, and you don't really know why. Like that's just one like simple case of why theory will give you like better feel on your instrument, I guess. It also aids you with memory, of course. I mean, if you see like a run of notes like G to G with an F sharp in it, I don't think of that as G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. I think of that as just like a G major scale. Like that's theory, right? Like that's just gonna that's just gonna aid your memory. I mean, there are countless examples of this. Like especially when I'm learning like Bach, and it's all just like 2-5-1s, just like linear harmony, just like arpeggios through each like chord. I'm not thinking of every single note. Like I just see a diminished arpeggio or whatever, and it's like 4 notes. I already know that. Without theory, it would be like impossible for me to memorize a fugue or something like that.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you can get away with a very, very basic level of understanding about music theory to play classical guitar. I think people don't have to be like very, very, very extremely good at music theory to do it, because classical guitar music is not that complex in terms of theory. A lot of the times I'm playing music, sometimes there are these chords with lots of extensions or like lots of extra notes. I have no idea. I couldn't name the chord, and I'm not really sure about what the notes are sometimes, but I'm just focusing on the bass on the bass chord, and that's just enough for me to maybe the first 3 notes, maybe the first 4 notes, and then everything above that is just just some kind of filler decoration maybe, and I'm learning them. Of course I'm playing all the notes, but I'm not gonna start to analyze them and figure out how the heck am I supposed to call that chord. I have no idea. I don't care. I'm just caring about the root and the function.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much like you can pick it up pretty quickly.
It's yeah.
Something.
No, and that's a great point. Because I think another like tremendous use case for music theory is actually explaining to other people what you're doing or what you want. Like if you wanted to tell somebody else like what that chord is, you would tell them like the extensions, and you could tell them precisely the chord that you're playing. But if you don't need to like explain it to anyone, you are still memorizing the chord, and we all sort of come up with our own like theory made up on these concepts that are even hard to explain. They might be like pattern based, they might be like based in like music theory that we're taught in school, and just like other stuff. They might be based on like memories from when you were a kid, just like stuff that's only going on in your mind that you're just attaching to like a chord in a piece. But yeah, no, to like explain a chord to somebody, like that's why we have our agreed upon music theory. So which makes sense why maybe guitarists don't need as much, because we don't like talk to anybody. We're usually not playing with other people.
Yeah, we don't have friends, and we're just sitting alone playing at home. Somebody asked, improvisation was very common back in the days. Why isn't it anymore? You mean in classical music? What about improvisation in classical music?
Yeah,
how it used to be very common.
Oh, it's not common. Am I answering that? Well, I'm not a music historian, so I don't know anything. But I can, like, postulate why it's not as common. Maybe it comes from, like, as time goes on, people, like, specialize in things. Because, like, obviously, if you just do one thing and only practice one thing, you're going to get better at it. So if you're practicing improvisation and classical performance and, like, music theory, you have to spread yourself thinner. You can only practice each of those things, like, 3 hours a day at most for, like, a 9-hour work day if you have, like, nothing else going on. But, if you can practice performance for 9 hours a day and just forget about the other stuff, you're going to get incredible at performing, which is why we have, like, performers that are, I don't know if they're better than ever. Like, I don't know how good, like, Paganini or, like, Soar was, but I feel like we have some people alive right now that are completely out of their minds good at guitar.
Yeah. I think it's, I think it's similar to how Olympics work. So I don't know if you have ever seen those videos where they put together an old Olympic performance and like a Olympic gymnastic performance and the current one.
Oh yeah.
Like the one looks so silly compared to the current one.
Yeah.
I think probably we're getting better and better at at figuring out ways to play this instrument or any instrument. Like our physical limitations are, I don't know, we're just getting better at these physical things. Like sports, we have every single years, or like years by years, we have new records and milestones and like big shit happening. So I believe that it has to be the same in music.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would completely agree with that. Because, I mean, like, performing an instrument is a very, like, athletic thing. Like, it is like a sport. So that's why improv isn't as important, maybe, or not, like, done as much. But improv is a very cool thing, though. I definitely encourage everybody to start dabbling in it. Which it can be, like, difficult to know, like, exactly how you start dabbling. I mean, like, one of my favorite ways to start is just pick, like, a scale. And it can be just a 1-octave major scale or a natural minor scale or whatever. And you don't even have to think about, like, function of the notes. Like, you can just pick a note to play and just play to, like, a quarter note pulse. And just go for as long as you can without, like, leaving the scale at all. That's a great way to just start. And then as you get comfortable, just, like, make it 2 octaves. Play in 2 different positions and switch between them. Until eventually you're just going through the whole neck. And then you can start, like, getting crazy with, like, picking, like, a chord progression and stuff. But, that's like, my favorite starting way.
That's next step.
That's the next step. But just, like, a set of notes playing to a pulse. That's, like, my favorite way to get started. That's, like, what I do with my students.
And if you guys are somebody who's using Solmization rather than scales, you can just, the way I started to feel comfortable, because I started improvising when I was already playing guitar for 17 years or 16, 17, I think, and I never felt confident enough to improvise. I don't know, I just didn't feel comfortable with it. The way I start is that I was just figuring out melodies in my head. I was coming up with little melodies I liked, and if I can hum it, I can probably play it on the guitar. If I hear the intervals in my head, I can find it on the guitar. And the more I practiced just looking for intervals, like trying to sing something in my head or hearing something in my head and jumping there on the guitar and thinking in terms of intervals, I started to feel like, I don't know, just better and better.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe a more melodic way of approach, or not melodic. Yeah, just interval based approach rather than using scales.
Yeah.
It's just an alternative.